Actors, stop working. Keep it back in the right. So where is the speaker stand? It's right there. And that's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Do you need a tripod?
That's your seat. That ain't me.
No. I'll just sit here. That's fine.
Anything else you need? You water? You got water?
Yeah.
There's water there. Water. You got water? What's that?
This is the pocket right here. Yes, please.
Is that good?
Perfect.
Come closer.
Yeah, go for it.
So this one is once I'm done.
Cool.
Okay. Yes.
Or would be just across the wall set.
Right. Then you come here.
Brother man, you want to come to the podium when you action?
I'm comfortable here.
You come?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah? No, you can sit fine. Fine.
I make them up there.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
Fine. Whatever you comfortable with. In God's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. Oh, praises to God to cherish and sustain the whole world. We're certainly grateful that God has allowed us to come together to have this conversation on a very important topic entitled Hurt People, Hurt People. I'm Riddell Taggart. I'm your moderator. I greet you in peace. To my Muslim brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. This session this evening is a very strategic one, and we're certainly grateful for your presence. I want to take the time to acknowledge Junior Minister of Justice, Dennis Lister III, as well as distinguished guests. We have a very distinguished panel this evening, a panel that understands firsthand what it means when we're talking about hurt people, hurt people. We have a keynote speaker, Imam Shadeed Muhammad from New Jersey, America. We also have the Honorable Justice Warren Wolf, who I'm sure some of you are familiar with, not in the courts though.
Absolutely.
Ms. Lori Shield, the Executive Director of the Center Against Abuse. Mr. Trevor Lindsay, the owner of TNN, and Trevor's out there firsthand witnessing the hurt that others place on others. And of course, recently elected president of the Southampton Rangers Sports Club, Mr. Darren Burch, who's also a sportscaster on 95.5 Monday afternoons, and I do listen to Darren quite a bit. We thank you for your presence. As I said earlier, this is a serious topic. It's one whereby the purpose is for the presenters who will share with you some of their first-hand experiences as it relates to their everyday practice in terms of how people hurt others. The intent is for the information that is disseminated for us to, one, internalize it and be able to use it within our communities, and perhaps more importantly, is so that the organizers of today's event, the One Bermuda Ummah, would like to conduct parental workshops. And so we have persons present in the audience who will be taking notes, who will be making suggestions as to the workshops that will be necessary in an effort for us to rid this problem of the hurt we put on others. And so it's very strategic. And so anything that is said will be captured, it will be streamed live, and so it's going around the world. A very important session. And then finally, I want to say, at the end of this session, which will end at 8:30 this evening, Imam Shadeed Muhammad will actually be on all fronts with Dr. Lou Simmons. And so after you get the taste of him this evening, on your way home, providing you're driving safely, cautiously, you can turn on your radios and listen to Magic 102.7 and hear Dr. Shadeed. I'll also say, too, on Friday evening, with God's will, Dr. Shadeed will be given a free address, question and answer period, so that perhaps some of the concerns that you hear this evening, some of the information that you receive, you may want to write down and raise a question to the presenter. That said, without any further ado, I'm going to proceed forward and introduce, excuse me? Oh, silence, yes. Would you kindly put your phones on silent, vibrate, choose not to have any interruptions as we proceed forward. Thank you. I'm at that stage. So, the bio of Imam Shadeed Muhammad. Shadeed Muhammad is a graduate from the prestigious Islamic University of Medina in Saudi Arabia. He graduated in 2007 with a bachelor's degree from the College of Hadith with a concentration in Hadith sciences. He also holds an equivalent degree in the Arabic language from the same university. Since graduating, Imam Shadeed Muhammad has been involved in Islamic education and outreach on multiple levels using a multitude of platforms. He has lectured at many mosques, Islamic centers, colleges, and universities throughout America and abroad using classical Islamic teachings infused with a cultural context that appeals to Muslims across a multitude of spectrums and cultures. In addition, Imam Shadeed established his own publishing run of publications and has authored a total of 8 books to date. He has a production company under the same name that has produced online talk show called The Madea Show, which tackles many contemporary issues in the American Islamic community. Currently, Imam Shadeed is the Imam of Bermuda Islamic Center of Delaware. He conducts a series of private online courses that blends Islamic teaching with social psychology, which tackles many contemporary issues within the American Muslim diaspora. Imam Shadeed's lectures can be found on his YouTube channel, Shadeed Muhammad, as well as his daily Islamic posts, which can be found on his Facebook page, Shadeed Muhammad, Roda Admin, in addition to his Instagram and Twitter pages. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I introduce to some and reintroduce to others Imam Shadeed Muhammad.
Someone use this mic here. Use this one?
Yeah.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and good afternoon to our family, friends, distinguished guests, moderators, and community organizers. Yeah, it's raining right on my head.
Oh, it is. You can see the middle place.
I want to first thank One Bermuda Ummah for extending the invite. Alhamdulillah. This organization has worked with me and many other imams and brought us here from various places outside of Bermuda to bring benefit not only to the Muslim community but to the larger Bermuda community as a whole. And although that my discussion tonight will be premised or be based or rooted in Islamic principles and teachings, I think that we all can agree and we can all appreciate how these principles are broad enough to, accommodate a wide spectrum of faiths, beliefs, and traditions and approaches towards the same goal, and that is peace and harmony in our communities. So I'll start with an aphorism that was attributed to a number of people. There was a Jewish rabbi that this was attributed to. And there were a number of people who were, the first to this aphorism to be attributed to. And that is that hurt people hurt people. And I want you guys to focus on that because there's two hurts in this aphorism, in this phrase. Hurt people hurt people. There's a comma in between there. All right, so there's two hurts, the same people, but two different types of hurts. So just to kind of elaborate a little bit on that comment, or on that phrase, that inflicting pain on people is usually a coping mechanism for people who have experienced significant emotional or physical abuse or trauma. And they perpetuate a cycle of unhealthy behaviors that are painful for themselves as well as other people. In the Islamic tradition, I'm going to lead with a small incident that Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings upon him, narrated to us about something that happened to a prophet of old. He doesn't mention the prophet's name in this narration, perhaps because he wants us to focus on the lesson rather than the personality involved. He said there was a prophet from the prophets of old who was traveling with his army, and he settled underneath a tree to gain shade, to benefit from the shade of the tree. It's hot, they're traveling, and he tells his army, his soldiers, to lay out a blanket, and he took off his armor, and he hung his sword up, and he laid down underneath the tree to relax underneath the shade of the tree. While relaxing underneath the shade of the tree, an ant came up and bit him. And this prophet got so angry and so upset, he told his army, his soldiers, to remove his things from underneath the tree, and then he ordered one of his soldiers to set the entire ant colony on fire. When he did this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God, revealed to him, هَلَّا نَمْلَةٍ وَاحِدًا, why didn't you get revenge on the one ant that bit you? In another narration, he said, an entire nation of creatures that worship me, you would destroy because one ant bit you. The concept here, if we were to unpack this story really quickly, you would look at the prophet as being the one that is the victim here. But this is the problem with hurt people hurting people, is because you tend to see yourself as a victim and therefore justify the behaviors that you project or you inflict on other people. That is one of the dilemmas of a person who sees themselves as a victim, that I'm justified in the pain that I inflict on other people. When in fact, this prophet was the one that was wrong, because his convenience was an infringement on somebody else's survival. You settled underneath a tree to relax and enjoy the shade, not realizing that you were sitting on someone's home. And while the ant bit you, rightfully so, to remind you that although a human being bigger, greater, with more resources, you don't have the authority to infringe on somebody else that's smaller than you, less resourceful than you are. You don't have the right to infringe on their space. And so while we look at the story, we see the prophet as the one who was the victim, when in fact the ant was the one that was the victim. And so hurt people hurting people, this hadith and many other narrations similar to this is a clear depiction of what happens when a person is in pain. They inflict pain on other people, sometimes people who don't even deserve the pain that they are dishing out. When you look at the pattern of behavior of a person that is in pain, whether they experience emotional trauma in their life, physical trauma in their lives, trauma is not what happens to you, it's how you respond to what happens to you that creates the trauma. These are what are called triggers. These can be phrases, words, times of the year, times of the day, places, people, things. All of these things can be triggering. And so what happens is that the person that is in pain will oftentimes project their pain onto other people. Here again, the victimization mentality, that I'm the victim here, so therefore I have a right to inflict my pain on other people. As a child that grew up in the foster home, myself, I'm talking about me now. As a child that grew up in a foster home, didn't really know my parents as a child, I used to say things like, I didn't ask to be born. I didn't ask to be here. And as reckless, as wild, and as reckless as my behavior was as a child, I thought that I was justified. For many years of my life, I thought that I was justified. Stealing, lying, and all of the other delinquent behavior that a child that grows up in such an environment, could muster up. And I thought in those moments that I was justified because I didn't ask to be here. Why was I born to parents who didn't love me, who loved drugs, as my mom and my dad were drug addicts, addicted, in their disease of addiction? My mentality was, how did they love drugs more than they love me? I didn't ask to be here. I didn't ask to be born. And this creates this victimizing mentality that I'm justified in any pain that I inflict on society because I'm the one that is in pain. But also this hurt people mentality it also produces low self-esteem. And I want you guys to listen to everything that I'm saying in retrospect to what you are seeing with many of our youth here in Bermuda, as well as abroad. Because everything that you guys have yet to deal with, we are already dealing with in America. And what you are seeing is just the starting point. This will get worse. I'm letting you know. We've already dealt with that. If there's anyone who are specialized in dealing with trauma, and dealing with child delinquency, and dealing with everything that comes along with that, is those of us that grew up in America, the inner cities of America. We know that pain more than anybody. I can spot it. I can be out and about and look in the face of a 16, 17-year-old kid, and I can tell you that child is in pain. Without even knowing his name, without even speaking to him, just looking at his demeanor, the low self-esteem. You can't expect a person who doesn't care about themselves to care about you, or to care about your society, or to care about your property, or to care about your children, or to care about your well-being. They don't care about themselves. An indication of that is many of them, the way that they dress, the tattoos on the face, the way that they desecrate their bodies. This is all an indication of children that are in pain. We sit back and we look and we say, well, what would possess a child to put a tattoo on their face, to put a tattoo of another person on their face? These children are in pain. And that pain has created low self-esteem. It creates a desire for validation, meaning they want to be valid no matter what it takes. And this is where the young men, they join gangs. And in order to be a part of a gang, they got to go and do something heinous like murder someone. They don't care about taking your life. All they care about is the validation that they're going to get when they get back to the rest of their homies and say, yeah, I got that body, I killed this person, and they get the pat on the back, they get the rise in rank, and whatever other validation that comes along with that. They're not looking at the harm that they have created in society. They're not looking at the life that they have taken and the trail of tears that they have created as a result of that. All they're thinking about is the validation that they're going to get on the other end. I'm certified. I'm a killer. That's the validation that they're looking for. A lack of empathy. They lack empathy, which is why 2, 3, 17, 18-year-old kids can rob an 80-year-old woman. There's no empathy. Here again, we're dealing with children. And when you think about trauma, it stifles personal growth and development. They're not growing emotionally. They're not developing emotionally, personally, because they're wallowing in the pain that has kept them, stifled at this particular place in their life. It's like a guy who goes to jail at 18 and comes home at 35, 40, and he comes home at 40, although biologically 40, he's still 18 emotionally. Especially if he hasn't taken time out during that process to develop himself. And I think that as a society, we spend more time focusing on the second hurt, which is symptomatic, than we do the first hurt, which is the root cause. As I said, hurt people. There's two hurts there. The second hurt is symptomatic. The first is the root cause. Hurt people. Why are they hurt? What is it that was so traumatizing in their lives that has created this level of pain? But we as a society focus on the second hurt. Hurt people, the hurt that they are inflicting on other people in society. Because we focus on the second hurt because it's more pronounced. It's loud. We can see it. It's disruptive to the harmony and safety of our society. And we focus less on the first hurt, which is the root cause, because it's silent. It's internal. And we think that as long as we ignore it, then, we don't have to deal with it. That's that person. But the first hurt is worse than the second hurt, because the first hurt is what fuels the cycle of the second hurt. So I'll give you something that Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, something that he prophesied would take place towards the last days. And in every religious tradition, they have prophecies of last days and things that are going to take place, things that are going to happen. Some of those things align with some of the things that we have in our religious tradition in Islam, and some of them don't. So if what I'm getting ready to say, if you have a different religious approach to spirituality, then just listen, just be open-minded and listen, right? Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may peace and blessings be upon him, he said towards the last days, there would be a number of small signs that are indicators of bigger signs to come. Two of the smaller signs that he mentioned, he said, لا تقوم الساعة حتى يكون الولد غيظا, that the last hour will not be established until children become angry. Children become angry. And another hadith, he said, and yukthir awlad zina, that the last hour, the last day will not be established until the children of fornication and adultery become prevalent, meaning children outside of wedlock. When you think about these two, in retrospect to everything that is going on in our society, we are giving birth to angry children. Now, he doesn't explain where the anger comes from, right? He just gives you the sign. So then you think about, well, what would make a child angry? What is fueling the anger of the child? The anger of the child is being fueled by a household of rules, regulations that the child doesn't want to conform to, because the outer society is telling them that you can be free. You can choose whatever gender you want to. You should be able to go onto the internet and go onto any website that you want to. You should be able to use your phone as much as you want to. And while these children are being fed these false ideas of freedom, they're living under parents' restrictions. And this is creating turmoil between the child and the parent. That's from one angle. The other angle is the child that is born of adultery, fornication. Children born out of wedlock. Statistically, in 2023, 41% of the children born in America in 2023 were out of wedlock. 41%. I want you to think about that. That's almost half. That was 3 years ago. 41% of the children born out of wedlock. 41% of children born in the United States were born out of wedlock. What does that tell you? That tells you that people are moving away from religious traditions. They're no longer governed by religious traditions of being married first before you have children. And all of the other social influences that are creating this type. Now, when a child is born out of wedlock, usually born as a result of a mistake, because the two adults that were involved in that process, they had no intention on having a child. And this is even worse in today's time with the manipulation of the of certain government programs, welfare, as well as child support, and all of the other programs that can be manipulated by women. Have a child by someone that they know doesn't want the child. And so it becomes a game, and the children are caught in the middle of that. You think about a child who's born to a mother, and the child knows that the mom is receiving child support from the father. And that child never sees his father. Every time the child appeals to the mother's good conscience to allow him to see his father, the mother comes up with an excuse for why the child cannot connect with the father. This is creating anger. This is creating resentment. This is creating a hostility that ultimately is going to boil over, trickle over into society at large. This is what is going on inside of the household. Not to mention the child, in many instances, has no connection with the father, has very little connection with the mother, because the child wasn't wanted from the beginning. It was a mistake. It was an accident. And we just decided to go through with it. And there are many children that are born in this type of situation, and they can feel the fact that they are not wanted in this situation. They can feel it. The mother overcompensates for a lack of emotional connection by giving the child new sneakers, an Xbox, feeding the child everything that they can feed the child so that they are preoccupied with those things so she doesn't have to emotionally connect with the child. Feeding them these things. You look at these children in today's time, they have everything from cell phone to iPad to Jordans. They have everything. And the parent says, well, I've given my child everything. You've given your child nothing if you haven't given them the emotional connection that they need in order to develop, to become full human beings. You haven't given them anything. But we give them these things to shut them up, to, block them out, so that we can continue with our lives and, have them out of the way. So these are just some of the symptoms that, I don't want to delve deeply into it, but we have to cultivate an environment that prioritizes family and marriage. And with Bermuda being such a small island, pretty much there is some level of control that you can begin to implement to avoid the inevitable. Because if you continue to ignore, not saying you guys that are here, but at large, if this problem continues to be ignored, then it's going to outgrow you to the point where it's out of your control at this point. Right now, you still have some level of control. Programs that can be instituted, mentorship that can be instituted, after school programs that can be instituted. And, maybe you don't get help from the government, but you also need to utilize like minds, think alike, to begin gathering your resources and being able to use that resource to thwart this this ball from rolling, from it gaining more momentum. Because once it gets out of control, it's beyond you at that point. But creating an environment that prioritizes family and marriage. We don't have enough time to delve deeply into the implications of this. But let's look at the obvious, and that is the absence of half of the young child's upbringing and development, and that is the father. The father in the home. And we're going to talk about this more on Friday, but I just want to give you just a glimpse, just a peek into how dangerous it is for a father to be absent from the home, whether emotionally or physically or both. And not every absent father from the home impacts the child the way that we think it does. Because there are some fathers that are absent from the home, and children are able to reconcile within themselves that the father is not there, and they're able to lead healthy lifestyles. Whether the father is away on business, the father spends, an astronomical amount of time away, whether working in another country, whether working somewhere where they spend long hours, the child is able to reconcile that to some degree. But someone, as we were talking the other day, who never had to use the word, Wallah al-Azim, I've never heard that phrase used before when we were talking the other day. He said that I've never had to use the phrase dad. I want you to think about that for a moment. Dad wasn't even in my vocabulary because I never had one, never knew him. I never had to use the word dad, father, because he was never a factor. So, in the absence of a father, there are increased risks of antisocial behaviors or even social awkwardness, which forces the child to, forge camaraderie or have camaraderie with those who are more like him rather than those who are different than him. A child that is raised with his father is well-rounded and doesn't mind mingling with people that are different than he is because they challenge him to be better. But a child that doesn't grow up with his father only connects with people who come from similar situations that he does. This is where the delinquency comes from. He wants to link up. If you think about the gangs, right? If you go to the gang, from the gang leader all the way down to the most insubordinate from amongst them, or the lowest, the insignificant from amongst them, what they call in America crash out, the crash out dummy, the guy that you just use to do whatever you need to get done. If you think about them, from the leader all the way down to the crash out, they have one thing in common. Most of them have one or two things in common, which is what united them. They find people that come from similar situations. Either the leader, he grew up with his father, but he resents his father so much. And so all of his pain has been poured into doing the opposite of what his father did. So you'll find a guy who's a pastor, preacher, even in the Islamic community, imams. And we're not impervious to that either. We're not perfect. We're not like some on an island by ourselves and these issues don't affect us. We are affected by this as well. Imams, whose children, born and raised, two parents, your father's an imam, giving the Friday sermon every Friday in the mosque, and yet you turn into a gang member. How does that happen? Because he poured all of his pain, his resentment, his hostility towards his father into doing the total opposite of what his father did. And this is what Prophet Muhammad ﷺ meant when he said that the last hour will not be established until the child is angry, meaning angry at his parents. Angry at his parents. The absence of the father, it creates mental health challenges like anxiety, depression. Number 3, it creates academic and social challenges. And this is largely due to self-esteem, low self-esteem, and not being able to seek help, which forces him to resort to behaviors that are comforting, even if they are academically disruptive. As a teacher for over 10 years, I can tell you that there are children in the classroom who know that they will not measure up academically, and these are your class clowns. They find comfort in being the jokester in the class because they know that they are not going to measure up academically. And they know that the teacher only sees the children in the classroom who measure up academically. So in order for him to be on par, or her to be on par with the academically astute students, is that they have to find a way to, engage in a behavior that makes them feel like they are equal with everybody else. These are your classroom disruptors, which later on become your society disruptors. Child delinquency, criminal activity, criminal behavior, because there is none to help them deal with their impulses. A child that resorts to criminal behavior is a child that struggles with impulse control. They're impulsive. And the presence of the father helps him to regulate his impulses. No, you can't have that right now. Which is why giving your child every time they cry as a baby, giving them everything that they cry for, you are setting yourself up for failure. Because you're not teaching the child to control their impulses. Oh no, I want this, and the child starts whining and crying. Just give it to him, because you don't want to hear his mouth. That translates to the child that if I engage in disruptive behavior, I can get what I want. Follow me. I can get what I want. Because the parent just gives him what he wants because he's disrupting the parent's harmony, peace. So I'm just going to give you what you want. And that sends a message subliminally to the child that I can get what I want later on in life by going after my impulses. Whatever I want, whatever I desire, go after it, I get what I want. The absence of the father also creates struggles with gender identity. They begin to explore, in an unhealthy way, different avenues of sexual expression because their identity in the gender role for which they were created has not been affirmed or validated by the presence of the father. The father validates the daughter's womanhood, and he also validates the boy's manhood. That comes from the father. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so beautiful, whenever his youngest daughter Fatima would enter into a room, he would stop his conversation, he would stand up, he would kiss her on the forehead, acknowledge her, and then sit her where he was sitting. This is validation of her womanhood. That comes from the father. That validation comes from the father. And likewise for the boy, the same thing. And when there is no one there to validate these gender roles, then they start to explore other avenues, right, of sexuality, ultimately identifying themselves by way of their sexuality. If you say that, and I don't want to go into, too deeply, I don't know where you guys are at as it relates to these particular discussions. I know that these discussions have a tendency to become, they are very sensitive discussions. Nonetheless, what I'm trying to press upon you is the importance of the father's presence in the life of the child. Number 6, and this is a big one, and that is dysregulated emotions. The inability to manage your emotions. In Islam, there is great emphasis on human beings managing their emotions. And we live in a time where, mental health awareness, mental health, issues revolve around protecting our emotions rather than challenging them and managing them. So we say, I'm trying to protect my peace. You're not protecting your peace if you're isolating yourself from everybody because you don't want to be challenged. That's not protecting your peace. Your peace is fragile because anytime somebody comes into your space that challenges you to be better and to do better and to look at the world from a different perspective, you isolate yourself from them under the guise of protecting your peace. You're not protecting your peace. You're fragile and you're trying to protect yourself. You're a fragile individual. This whole discussion around mental health issues is more so about protecting our emotions rather than managing them. You are responsible for how you feel. I am not responsible. You wake up angry, you wake up on the wrong side of the bed. Everybody that you cross paths with throughout the day has to now be a victim of you not managing your emotions. That's your responsibility, not mine. You're having a bad day. What does that have to do with me? Why do I have to be a part of that? Why can't you be mature enough to manage your own emotions so as to not inflict harm and pain on other people? Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Al-mu'min al-qawi خَيْرٌ وَأَحَبُّ إِلَى اللَّهِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِ الضَّعِيفِ وَفِي كُلٍّ خَيْرٌ. The strong believer is better and more beloved to Allah than the weak believer, but in both of them is good. There is an emphasis on strength. In another hadith, he said that the strong person is not the person that can wrestle somebody to the ground. The strong person is the person that can control himself when he's angry. That's real strength. The measure of strength is not by way of your physical prowess. The measure of strength is by way of your emotional control and regulation. Your ability to regulate your emotions. And what we're dealing with our youth in today's time is emotional dysregulation, which is the opposite. They have no regulations of their emotions. And this is especially true with many of our youth when you factor in all of these emotions that they're struggling with. And then on top of that, they're using drugs and alcohol, which makes it even more difficult for them to deal with whatever emotions they're struggling with. So, dysregulated emotion, let me tell you what it looks like. Intense emotions, meaning you experience emotions at a stronger level than what the situation warrants. You see a person that goes from 0 to 100 real quick, and the situation doesn't even require all of that energy. But this is a person who doesn't regulate his emotions. Argues, fights, and it's just like, bro, the situation doesn't even require that. I stepped on your shoe, or I didn't know you were standing in line. It's not that serious. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think it is that serious when a father's fighting for his son. So I actually wrote an article on what anger is, because anger has been used by the courts to paint a picture of us in doing our job as men. Now, you're saying guidelines of our importance in our role as men in our families' lives. But when we get angry because people are trying to push us out of our families' lives and doing what we're supposed to do to protect them, we're now unstable and emotional.
I got you.
Which is wrong.
I got you.
Because it's my job. And I'm sorry, I'm going to let you, but I mean, I'm living this right now.
I got you. I can see it in your face.
One thing that bothered me, and I'm going to let you continue because people didn't come here to hear me. But the thing is that there's things that's been put into place that are preventing us from recovery that we have to address.
Gotcha.
We have to deal with. So.
Gotcha.
Thanks.
No, I appreciate that.
Questions after the presentation.
I appreciate that.
But we'll move forward.
I appreciate that. And perhaps, some of our esteemed guests and speakers here who are more familiar with the territory here than I am can address that or can speak to that and provide you with some solutions. But no, you are right. I'm not dismissing the need for anger. Sometimes anger is necessary. But there is a healthy anger, there's an unhealthy anger. The healthy anger is when you use that anger, you channel that anger to push you forward to do better. It becomes the fuel that you need to get over this hump. You understand? And unhealthy anger is when it stifles you and it puts you in a worse situation than what you were in before you got angry. If your anger is pulling you backwards, it's unhealthy. It's not pushing you forward. So while I do understand that, and yes, there are things that are triggering things that put men who are trying to be in the lives of their children, there are obstacles. There are obstacles, and that's all there are. But here again, you are still responsible for yourself. You are responsible for managing your emotions no matter where you are, whether you are in a marriage, whether you are in a parent-child relationship, whether you are fighting in the courts to try to be back in the lives. You are responsible for your emotions. Nobody else can manage that but you. Nonetheless, dysregulate emotions. It creates, number one, intense emotions, meaning you experience emotions that are at a higher level than what the situation requires. Difficulty calming down, mood swings, impulsivity, difficulty maintaining relationships. And all of this is created as a result of trauma. And trauma can be neglect. Trauma can be physical abuse. Trauma can be sexual abuse. Trauma can be emotional abuse. And trauma can be exposure to violence. And with these 5 things, these are 5 things that the organizations in Bermuda can attack one by one. Number one, the neglect, parent neglect. There needs to be an organization that helps reconnect parents with children. Some parents don't know how to connect with their children. Some parents may feel like, I've been out of my child's life for so long, it makes no sense for me to even try to connect. But that child is always longing for that connection. Even into adulthood. I developed a very great relationship with my father, may Allah have mercy upon him, towards the latter days of his life. And I thought as an adult, I didn't actually need that. I don't need you right now. I'm an adult. I got kids of my own. I don't really need you. I did. And that one time that I got my father, I cornered him one day. And he said to me, I know that I wasn't a good father. I said, no, you don't have to do that, because it was a very uncomfortable situation. But he said, no, don't stop me, because I need to say this to you. I know that I wasn't a good father to you. And for that, I'm sorry. And he might have said this to me maybe about 3 years ago. I needed to hear that. Even almost 50 years old, I needed to hear that. And I thought I didn't until he said it. And it was just like a sigh of relief. I can breathe now. Some parents don't know how to connect with their children. And so we need professionals to help create that bridge that helps connect the children with their parents. Physical abuse. There are children that have been physically abused, beat relentlessly. I was a product of that as well, growing up in a foster home. My foster father beat me for literally every little thing. And I mean, as a kid, I couldn't understand why. As you get older, you understand that, as a foster parent, I'm not his biological child. So he doesn't look at me and see a reflection of him. It's hard. It's tough for a step parent. It's tough. Because as a man, when you look at a child, you want to see that image reflected back to you. And when you don't see that, there is a disconnect there. You got to fight past that in order to get beyond that, which takes a lot of practice. But to see a child that doesn't look like you, as you know, in the animal kingdom, when a lion sees a cub from another pride, he will kill it. Because that cub is not a reflection of him. He has no connection to that cub whatsoever. He doesn't look at it as, oh, this is a baby, this is a cub, this belongs to another pride, let me pick him up and take him over to... No, he will eat him. Because he doesn't see the image reflected back to him. So physical abuse, learning how to recover from that takes a lot. Sexual abuse. There has to be organizations, professionals, collectively, that help children overcome the trauma that has been created as a result of sexual abuse. And most of the sexual abuse takes place at the hands of someone that they knew, a family member, which makes it even worse. Emotional abuse. And then, of course, exposure to violence. Children that are growing up in homes where they're seeing violence in the home, whether domestic violence, mom and dad fighting all of the time, or violence from uncles and aunts that come over the house and expose them to certain things, or older siblings that expose them to certain things. These are all things that create trauma in the lives of children that are affecting our society. So we need to get to the root of the problem instead of spending so much time addressing. So when we're in, like, for example, in America, they deal with the symptoms. Even in the hospital, they don't give you medicine to treat the root cause. They give you medicine to medicate you. But the problem still exists. The root of the problem still exists. But the medication is to get you to keep coming back, because we're treating the symptoms, not the root cause. Similarly, when we're building more prisons, putting more police on the street, this is dealing with the symptom, not dealing with the root cause. And because we live in a capitalistic society, it's easier. We capitalize off of dealing with the symptoms. We create bigger prisons. We privatize the prisons. We put more police officers on the street. Right? We're dealing with the symptom because we're capitalizing off of it. But never do we deal with the root. There's never any government funding put into organizations. Many organizations are non-for-profit. They do fundraisers. They come to events like this. They bring people in like me or others that do fundraisers to help them raise funds so that they can, continue on the work that they're doing in their organizations. Because the government would rather capitalize by treating the symptom rather than treating the root cause. And so we have to be people that are solution-oriented, not people who are problem-oriented. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. I thank you guys for your time. And I pray that through these words that I shared with you, that we're able to get our wheels turning, and that we begin to organize and we begin to deal with some of the root problems that we see going on with our children in society. هذا وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا.
Are you going to continue on Friday night with this?
Yes.
What is
So
the topic for Friday night?
Friday night we'll be dealing with fatherlessness and broken boy syndrome. Fatherlessness and broken boy syndrome. All right. And where's the location? We'll be at Willowbank. We'll be at Willowbank Friday night. What time?
6 until 9.
6 until 9.
4-course meals.
Had to throw that out.
So let's give a round of applause for Imam Shadeed Muhammad. Very thorough, very thorough indeed. Appreciate you, brother, man. You've been said much.
Alhamdulillah.
I'm taking notes. I'm taking my notes. I'm reflective of the two hurts and what it really means, the extent of the first hurt, the validation, the second hurt, the systemic hurt, and the prophecies that came from Prophet Muhammad in terms of the last days. So we really appreciate that.
No, alhamdulillah.
Moving
Thank you so
forward,
much.
our second presenter will be Honorable Justice Warren Wolf. Before I go there, I want to take the time to acknowledge, I see the presence of the Honorable Minister Michael Biggs, the Minister of National Security. I see him and his lovely wife, Cindy Biggs, Principal of Carrington South. Good to see you. And I also see Imam Salim Razak in the back there. Welcome, Gee. So, I will give the introduction to...
You're not going to read my bio, are you? You're not do that.
You don't want me to do that?
Nah.
Okay.
Nah, we're good.
You're in charge.
I do want to have the mic up here, if you don't mind.
Sure. Let's accommodate.
I'm going to take this one.
Thanks.
Would be an injustice not to recognize this.
Just the first paragraph.
First paragraph, okay.
Yeah.
The Honorable Mr. Justice Warren Wolf was appointed as Magistrate of the Magistrates Court of Bermuda in August 2005, Senior Magistrate in October 2014, and Puisne Judge of the Supreme Court of Bermuda in April 2022. In February 24, he was appointed as In February of 2024, he was appointed as the Supervising Judge of the Criminal Division of the Supreme Court of Bermuda. Let me take a step further, this last paragraph. Okay. Justice Wolf was the presiding magistrate of Bermuda's Drug Treatment Court from 2013 to 2022. In 2014, he initiated and presided over the Mental Health Court, and in 2019, he initiated and presided over the Driving Under the Influence Court. In this regard, Justice Wolf has delivered several local and overseas presentations to various organizations about therapeutic treatment courts. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Justice Warren Wolf.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes? Can you hear me? Okay, great. Well, good evening again. I often get in trouble. My mother tells me that my mouth gets me in trouble all the time. And that's partly because I don't have a filter. I just tell you what's on my mind. So if that's what you want, then I certainly can give it to you. Do you mind if I just sort of speak to you from my heart and speak to you from what I know? And in doing so, I'm going to sort of probably reveal some warts of our community along the way. Is that okay for you?
Yes, please.
Excellent. Okay. So the great civil rights leader, Frederick Douglass, said that it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. Let me say that again. It's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. All too often in our community, we are reactive to the problems that we have, not proactive. And that's something we need to change immediately. So Bermuda is, and we know this, Bermuda is an exceptionally beautiful place. We have pink sands, we have turquoise waters, and we truly live in a place that is paradise. And our people are some of the most amiable people in Bermuda, in the world actually. But we must not be blinded to other pressing realities. What is often ignored, deliberately sometimes ignored, is that there is also a deeply entrenched underbelly, which is punctuated by violence against our children and our elderly, antisocial and criminal behavior, parental dysfunction, drug and alcohol abuse, gang affiliation, and also a rapid erosion of our social norms and our social values. So, we must ask ourselves some really, really difficult questions. What have we done or not done to create the problems in the first place? What have we done to cure the problem? What have we done to enable, condone, or even perpetuate the problem? What have we done to hide the problem? And what must we do now? So, tonight is the night that we have to air our dirty laundry. Kicking our problems under the carpet has not made them go away. Like an invasive vine, they have only taken root, and its growing branches are strangling the moral fiber of our beloved country. Am I right or wrong?
You're right.
Now, I know, I don't want to insult you. I know that this is a very, very complex problem, and tonight does not permit us to speak about everything and to provide all-knowing solutions. But in keeping in mind the theme of tonight, I do want to talk about something which has been bothering me for a very long time. And that is how our community treats or does not treat mental health and trauma. And thank you very much, Imam, for giving that great speech about and setting down what exactly trauma is and how it looks like. Particularly in our boys and our young men who look like me. So let me put this into context, and I think I know a little bit about this. Close to 80% of our men who are incarcerated at Westgate present with a myriad of mental health issues, ranging from low-level depression to schizophrenia, and some of which has been drug-induced. Many of them speak of deep pains of abandonment by their fathers and increasingly now by their mothers. Many are struggling cognitively, and many are grappling with uncontrollable behavioral impulses. We think alike. One does not need to be a sociologist to reach the inescapable conclusion that there is a strong connection between mental health and antisocial behavior and even criminal behavior. To deal with their inner turmoil, many of our young men, increasingly our young women, are either self-medicating with controlled substances or are seeking love, self-worth, and value in all the wrong places. Many are suffering in silence because of some traumatic event that took place in their childhood, and it is only a matter of time before they boil over like a volcano. And yet, what is keeping us from reaching out for help is this stigma that our community has about mental health and about trauma. We have absolutely no problems rushing our loved ones to KEMH for a physical problem, but we shun them away when they have a mental health issue. So, as a community, we must do better. We must do better. I do apologize for being passionate, maybe overly emotional about this, but this strikes at the heart. I see this every day. I see our young men, particularly our young black men, like a revolving door coming through our system. And we are doing not enough to assist them with what they are experiencing. And we have to stop it. So, firstly, what do we need to do? We need to have conversations about mental health and trauma, even if they are uncomfortable. And tonight is a perfect example of what we have to do. So I want to applaud the organizers and Dr. Tanker's team for hosting this evening, because these conversations, as difficult as they may be, we have to have them. So thank you very much. I want to give them a round of applause. Who are the organizers? Raise your hand. Okay. Thank you very much for that. Thank you. Excellent.
All right.
Secondly, we must acknowledge and accept that we and our loved ones may be suffering from mental health challenges and trauma, and that they need help. We must acknowledge that, as difficult as that may be. We can't just say that little Johnny is rude. We have to acknowledge that maybe Johnny is suffering from something that took place. And maybe something didn't take place, but there may be something within him that's causing him to behave in this way. We just can't push them into a corner as if the problem is going to erode. We must be consistently, and you talked about it, we must be consistently attuned to the emotions and the behaviors of our loved ones so that we can get them the assistance that they need stat. Third, we must stop treating people who have mental health problems like they are pariahs. There is an extremely fine line between those of us who think that we do not have a mental health issue and those of us who may have a mental health issue. Any given stressor at any given time can cause any one of us to need to have some assistance from someone who's a professional. Do you agree or don't agree? Yes. If you have a situation where you have maybe someone in your family, a loved one, passes away, and plus you have a mortgage to pay, and you have become redundant, and then maybe your girlfriend or boyfriend breaks up with you, and then you got an accident, a car accident, and you mess up your car, and it needs to be paid for, and maybe you get COVID. Stressors upon stressors can cause any one of us in this room tonight to want to seek some sort of assistance. And once we recognize that and understand that, then maybe we'll treat those who have mental health issues with some degree of humility and humanity. So we must abandon the stigma of mental health within our community. Fourthly, is it number 4? I think it's number 4. Fourthly, we need to treat mental health and trauma with the same attention, vigor, and resources that we do for physical health. We must find the resources to create programs within our community, within our schools, within our workplaces, within our sports clubs, within our workmen's clubs, within our places of worship, and within our prisons. So, but not all is doom and gloom. I am really, really encouraged by those who tirelessly assist others. Those who are the voice for the voiceless. Those who are the power for the powerless, and those who are the hope for the hopeless. While they may not receive the accolades that those who are on Front Street and with financial successes receive, They are looking out for our most valuable assets, which is what?
Each other.
Our people. Our people. But we need more people like them. So in this regard, I like to lean on the South African Ubuntu proverb, which encapsulates interconnectedness, togetherness, and community. Translated, it means, I am because we are. I am because we are. Rooted in this moral system in South Africa is the held belief that a person is a person through other people. This was the philosophy of, and was the nucleus of Archbishop Desmond Tutu's heroic efforts in helping black and white South Africans navigate through the atrocities of apartheid. He's quoted as saying, "We have the ability as people to dig into our human values and to go for the best of them in order to bring about healing and bridge the gap." Those of us who live in this beautiful country, we too have that same ability. Yes, we may be facing some rough waters right now, and maybe we're not sure about our respective futures, but to our core, we are the same people who successfully navigated through the dehumanization of slavery from the early 17th century until 1834. We are the same people who navigated through the segregation of the 1950s, the social and labor inequalities of the 1970s and the 1980s, the financial crash in 2008, the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 and 2021, and every hurricane which has ever dared to decimate our island. We have gotten through all of that. So, I have absolutely no concerns, none whatsoever, that we will not collectively find solutions that will help us through whatever troubles we may now be experiencing, and ultimately, we will heal and find peace. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Wolf. And please, no apologies. We appreciate that passion. We really do. Our next speaker is a lady of distinction, very modest lady. I just found out reading her bio, she attended Howard University, my alma mater. Wow. Ms. Lori Shield. Ms. Lori Shield is the Executive Director of the Center Against Abuse, a position she has held since 2008. Under her leadership, the CAA has provided critical support services for survivors of intimate partner abuse and sexual assault, as well as community education and awareness initiatives aimed at prevention and advocacy in Bermuda and beyond. Lori is a respected voice on gender-based violence and has represented Bermuda at regional Caribbean conferences, where she has contributed to the development of best practices and regional guidelines. Locally, she frequently speaks at conferences, workshops, and training sessions to promote greater understanding and action around domestic abuse and sexual assault. Appointed in 2010 as chairperson of the Bermuda Women's Council by the Minister of Community and Cultural Affairs, Lori held the position until the council's dissolution. She also served as chairperson of the Gender Affairs Council from 2023 to 2024, where she led the development of foundational terms of reference to guide gender equality efforts in Bermuda. Lori began her professional career in 1996 as a management trainee at HSBC and went on to build a successful career in human resources, culminating in her role as Vice President of Human Resources at an international company. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Psychology from Bermuda College and a Master's in Educational Psychology from, Howard University. HU. Driven by a lifelong commitment to justice and equality, Lori is honored to lead the movement to eliminate gender bias, domestic abuse, and sexual abuse in Bermuda. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, Lori Shield.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a pleasure to be here today and to be seated with these distinguished gentlemen. I have to confess, I thought that this panel was just going to ask me some questions, so I did not come prepared with a speech. But I do have a story to tell you, a story of a young lady who gave me permission to share her story. She grew up in a household, the youngest of 4. She grew up with her mother and her father. They were married. And her father worked in shipping. He was well established in what he did. He was one of the highest people in his area of expertise. Her mother stayed home and took care of the family. She shared with me that most days her father came home drunk. And she knew that when he came home drunk, that meant 2 things. He was going to beat her mama, and then he was going to beat all the kids. This was her life. This is what she saw. But he also was not always there because he provided for this family, right? He was the sole breadwinner. He traveled all around the world all the time because of his job. He would bring presents for his wife and for his children. Always. Books from afar. She was able to read different books and show off to a friend how she got this book from this place or the other place. This was her normal. And guess what? She lived in a community that was surrounded by her father's family. This was the normal for her neighborhood. This is what she heard in her neighborhood. She heard women and children crying at night because the fathers were beating the family. When she was 16, her mother died. She was the last one left home at this point. Her brothers had left home who were older than her. Her sister had left home who was older than her. Her father decided he didn't want her. And so he sent her to a cousin. And so she lived with her cousins from there on, which were in another part of Bermuda. Now, what do you think happened with these children? They left home early. Why do you think they left home early? Anyone? Yeah, to escape the abuse, right? Unfortunately, they didn't escape the abuse because the trauma was already within. So there was one son who went on to be an alcoholic like the father. She didn't tell me much about her sister. She did mention that her sister also liked to drink. She didn't say she was alcoholic, but she did say she liked to drink. The other brother, who was the eldest, he too became an alcoholic. He too beat his woman. His woman was also an alcoholic, and she used to give it back to him as good as he gave it to her. And one day, I guess she got tired of him beating her. So she stabbed him 118 times and killed him. What rage is within a person to stab a person 118 times? This was this lady's life. Now, she was at a crossroad. She could follow suit and become an alcoholic. She could follow suit and find a man that's an alcoholic. She could follow suit and find a man that put his hands on her and put his hands on the children that she might have for him. But she decided she wanted to do different. She decided that her father had put his hands on her enough that she didn't want another man put their hands on her. So she specifically went out looking for someone that did not represent her father, that wasn't familiar to her. And so when you go out looking for somebody that's not familiar to you, it feels unfamiliar. It feels different. It feels strange. It may even make you run back to something that feels comfortable and familiar. The scent of alcohol is familiar. But she pushed past that and went looking for someone who did not represent her father. Because she knew she wanted different for herself. She knew she wanted different for children that she didn't have. She found him. She found him. It wasn't easy, but she found him. Unfortunately for him, he didn't know that this is what she was looking for. They met. They married. They had children. Now she had another concern. Her concern now is that I carry a bloodline that has alcohol in it. I carry a bloodline that has domestic abuse in it. What do I do with this? How do I stop this from being in my children? And she said the only way she knew how to do this was set the example. That's number one. Her and her husband must set the example of a unit for their children. They decided that one of the things that they were going to do was that they were not going to argue in front of their children. And that's not to say they didn't have disagreements. They just made a decision that that would not happen in front of their children. The second thing she decided to do was she was going to tell her children who she was. She wasn't going to hide her childhood from her children. And so she shared her story of who she was and how she grew up with her children. And she said she did this so that they would know exactly where she came from, the choices she made, and also talk to them about the choices that they need to make. She went on to have 7 children, 5 boys, 2 girls. I want to say all of them were exceptional, but one was lost. One decided that he was going to become an alcoholic and beat his woman. This is my grandmother's story. I have known about abuse since as far back as I can remember, because she told me her story. Because she would say to me, it's in your blood, because you get it from me. Now my granny will be over 100 today. And so this story goes back over 100 years. I have a daughter. My daughter, who's never met my granny, knows her story. Because we want to make sure that we take it out of our bloodline. We talk about what runs in our DNA. Today, scientists talk about how trauma runs in your DNA. My grandma didn't go high school, but she knew, she was wise and knew that I am handing what happened to me, what happened to my father, down to my children. And trauma runs in our DNA. And as my granny would say, through your blood. And so it is incumbent upon us to have these conversations with our children about the trauma that we hold, that we have passed down to them unintentionally. And have those true conversations with them so we can sit down and say, hey, this is what I'm giving you. And this is what I don't want to see repeated in you and your children. When we see the behaviors coming up, we can say, hey, you know what? This is what I see in you. Let's talk about how we're going to move away from that. Because we don't want that to continue. I can sit down with my daughter and not only talk to her now about what's come from me, but because we are close, I can say, these are behaviors that I also see coming from your father's side. And she can say to me, I saw that in myself. I peeped that in my own self, and I'm working to release that off of me. And so it's important that we teach our children who we are. And it's important that we have conversations and connections with our children. And what I find in my line of work is that a lot of parents get in a space when they're in abusive situations because so much is going on. They're so concerned with the abuse, unfortunately. They're so concerned with trying to please and appease the abuser that the child gets neglected. And when a child gets neglected, this is now prime territory for someone who is preying on children, and I'm not talking P-R-A-Y, I'm talking P-R-E-Y, to infiltrate and get to that child. Whether it's gang members, whether it's someone who is a pedophile, whether it's someone that's grooming your child for some other untowards. So it's incumbent upon us as adults to ensure that we pay attention to the children. That we get ourselves out of messes so that we can put our focus on ourselves and our children. Because as the adults, we can say, oh, the children are doing this, the children are doing that. But why? Why? What did we do to facilitate their being like that? The fingers get pointed back at us. And so we must take a stand when we see stuff that's going on in our community. When that person is a family member of ours, when that person is a godchild of ours, it is incumbent upon us to have those conversations and not just stand aside and not do anything. It's incumbent upon the men in Bermuda to stand up and be men. To stand up as leaders, as heads of the family, even when you're not in the household. You still have a responsibility as a head to those children that you fathered. It's important that you take them under your wing and that you teach them godly principles and that you teach them morals. Because without that, someone else comes in and teaches them morals, which could be absolutely wrong. You have to teach your children boundaries. You have to teach your children standards. Because if you don't, someone else will come in and teach them a boundary and teach them a standard. And that person may end up in an abusive relationship because they've been taught that this is okay. They've been taught they don't have a voice. They've been taught that they need to be with that person and stay with that person no matter what. They've been taught to keep secrets. They've been taught not to report to the police. They've been taught not to reach out for help. They've been taught not to accept any type of assistance when they are having challenges with their mental health. There's a statistics that states that children who have been exposed to intimate partner abuse have mental health rates at a higher level than a child who has been directly abused. When mothers and fathers fight, argue, and create abuse in front of a child, it disrupts the mental health of that child. I'm going to go back to my grandparents. They made a concerted effort not to argue in front of their children. And my granny was a hard woman. So I know she had words with my granddaddy. My granddaddy once, she once said, she didn't speak to my granddaddy for 3 months. He didn't know. Because he was speaking to her. He didn't take her on. But my mother said she never saw her parents argue. And I asked my grandmother one day, how do you stay with a person for over 50 years? And she said, when you have a disagreement, you work it out. And they worked it out behind closed doors. They worked it out. And sometimes that workout took 3 months. But they worked it out, right? And so it's important that you partner yourself with someone that you can work it out with, amicably. Someone who's not going to call you out of your name. Someone that's not going to take what you told them in confidence and then turn it into a weapon and use it against you. You want to partner with someone who's going to be there for you and your children, even if it don't work out, because they have their best interests of you and your children at heart, even if they recognize, hey, we didn't work out. Some people today only work with their children if the mother's sleeping with them. And some mothers feel they have to sleep with their former partners just to get the parent to have time with their children. Because if I don't sleep with him, he's not going to spend time with his kids. So Bermuda has our motto. What's our motto?
Go Forant.
Go Forant, which means whither the fates may lead us, right? We can't leave it to fate. We can't leave it to chance. We must be purposeful. I feel we need to change our motto. We must be an island that is purposeful. We must be an island that is focused. And we cannot leave it to chance. We need to establish a blueprint and follow that. I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lori, for that powerful story. Wow. And I have a better appreciation for the work that you do and the significance of it in your life. Very meaningful. If you're joining us, we're streaming live. We're at the Bermuda College, the conference, the conversation, Hurt People, Hurt People. We'll be here until 8:30. Feel free to come on by this evening. Following this presentation at 9 o'clock on all fronts, Imam Shadeed Muhammad will be having a conversation with Dr. Simmons, Dr. Lou Simmons. On Friday evening at the Willowbank Resort, again, Imam Shadeed will be speaking on the broken boy syndrome. So feel free, keep it in your mind, lock it in your calendars, and hopefully we'll see you there. Our next presenter, a gentleman who I've come to admire quite a bit based on the work in which he does, Mr. Trevor Lindsay. I understand Mr. Lindsay has been in the field, telecommunications, for over 30 years, started with the ZBM, and now I like to think that he keeps it real, not just the R-E-E-L, but the R-E-A-L. Because we get updated on information and things that transpire quicker than regular media. We really do. And so, Brother Trevor, we want to bring you to the mic, and we would like for you to share with us the things that you do and what you see front and center.
Thank you, sir. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There we go. Thank you. Let me first of all correct when you made a statement of worshipful one wolf being in the drug court from 2013. It was 2010 because I was one of his recipients. And it was 2010, August 2010, 15 years I've been clean. And I want to thank the drug treatment court. He was magistrate then, but Justice Wolf that saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And he pushed me in the drug treatment team to the DRI benefit to Bermuda. Thank you. I watched a presentation last night at the Pier 6 and some young people talking about the gang, knife, gun violence that we see and they are experiencing. Our young people are experiencing stuff that, well, we all been through trauma. All of us traumas are different, but trauma is trauma. But they are experiencing stuff that we've never seen before. You know, they can't even move certain spots, certain places they can't move. And young 14 and 15-year-old, I can identify with it because I came from Court Street, carrying knives. I had to carry a knife because I was small, I was short, and I saw on the street that individuals came at me. I was taught, if you open that blade, use it. That's what I was taught. That was my upbringing, coming from Court Street. But our young people are now saying they've had enough. They talked about the stigma of snitching. Snitching is going to protect and help that person that is the perpetrator. You see, even we see with some of this trauma that prison is saving some of these young men's lives. They committed an offense and they have to pay for their offenses. So prison is going to save their life. But I want to give hats off to the National Security Ministry and the gang reduction team on their presentation last night. So things are happening. We might not see it, but things are happening. You can watch it on TNN. I'll give myself a plug. I did last night. Watch it and see what you get from it. But I want to talk about what I see. I see, I'm out there. I see the road deaths. I see the accidents. I see the carnage. I see the gun violence, the shooting, and it is bad. What's coming on the pipeline now is that, and my ear is in the street. That's another thing that I have an advantage of from whence I came. My feet are in the street. I have a lot of sources. A lot of people say stuff and I hear stuff. And our young people are hurting. So let me give you an example. I shoot your brother. I go into Hardy or I go Westgate. these young people, all they want to do is inflict pain. So they can't get me. This is what's coming. Excuse me. This is what's coming. Believe me, this is what's coming. They want to inflict pain. So they're not feeling no way to shoot your father, your mother, anything that is dear to you, they're coming for you. You see it with 3 women in the last so many years. Just as 3 women being shot there. Who would do that? And yes, I know what it feels like, because the last victim was my niece. But this is what we're dealing with today. We're dealing with some pretty angry young men. And a lot of them are recipients of their fathers being shot and killed. And we haven't dealt with their trauma. So what they're doing now is acting out of rage. They're going across anger. They're acting out of rage, where they don't feel no way about killing someone else. You killed my dad, I'm gonna kill someone else. They're not even going after the person that killed the dad or the family members. This is just pure rage. And if we don't deal with it, I heard the Imam say, it's gonna get worse. And it is. It's getting real bad. It's bad out there. Where I see this going now is we have so many guns on our island. 10 years ago, we had maybe 10, 11, 12 guns, and they were being shared around. But now, smuggling guns, and I know about that too. Not guns, but smuggling drugs, because that was the lifestyle I was involved in. Smuggling, selling. I come from the hood. I come from all of that, so I'm talking from my own experience. But smuggling guns now is big money. Selling of guns is big money. 10 grand, guys will pay for a burner, that's what they call it. And then the ammunition. So it's about the money. The same individuals that are smuggling the drugs are now smuggling the guns. It's big money. Whose hands they end up in, that's where the problem lie. How do we stop it? I ain't got a clue. I don't know how to stop this, because it's like a cat and mouse game. I remember from my own experience in selling drugs. We see men when they come, we move a certain spot. Cat and mouse. You get away, you get away, you get away, one day you get caught. It's the same way of what we see now is individuals are getting caught, but one gets caught, 7 more come in. One gunman off the street, 7 more coming in. How do we get to our young people to tell them, to really direct them? And yes, we heard our man had to take the rightful place, and they do. But how do you get to those young men, those fathers that have been killed? They're fatherless. We have, over 80-something, over 90-something individuals that have been shot dead with 3 females. 99% are young black men. 1% of a Caucasian color. And these guys have got no fathers. I know what it's like to fatherless. And I shared with the Imam 2 days ago, or yesterday was it? About, that word was foreign for me. To use the word dad was foreign. I have a stepdad, and all he done was beat me. I was married to my mom, and he beat me for everything. And I guess in treatment I learned I must have looked like my father. So every time he saw me, he saw my dad. Some stuff comes back to my memory about my childhood. I remember at one point I was probably 11 years old in an apartment down St. George, and he came in drunk. He woke me up. He took me in the bathroom, and he shot a gun right across my head. I took me a while before I remembered it, but that was a traumatic experience. I used to sleepwalk. I remember pulling down the window and was climbing out in my sleep. Thank God for my sister that was younger than me that stopped me. But you talk about trauma. Yeah, I know all about it. And these things have adverse effects. The abuse I got, I turned around and started abusing myself. I abused women, and the reason why was because my mom never defended me when it came to my stepfather, because she was abused. So I started abusing women. I can have a relationship with a woman, an intimate relationship with a woman, and have no feelings for her. That's a form of abuse. And I had to come to terms with my behavior. But I had to look back at the root cause of my behavior. And that's what we need to do with some of the stuff we see going on with our young people. We need to look at why and what's caused it. Just like how I had to look at my life and the stuff I did in treatment. Treatment was good for me. I learned about me. I learned about what made me who I am. I heard about, and the Shias was talked about spirits that are on our families. Alcohol, abuse. Some men physically beat their wives, beat their girlfriends. Some girls are so used to it that that's the type of man they look for. It's a spirit. Okay? They've seen it in their parents, they've seen it in their mom, so that's what they think is the norm. So they look for a man, they attract a man, not look for, they attract a man that has the same spirit. A spirit of murder, I know what that's like because I come from a generation, 3 generations of members of my family killing someone. So I know what it's like. I know what that range is like to want to kill someone. I used to carry knives, 3, 4, 5 knives on me. Back in '83, before the law was changed, the police had I guess it was a memo. Whenever they saw me, just take the knives off him. Just take the knives off me. I have a long kitchen knife, another short knife, a hatchet in my back, and if I had to use it, I'm going to use it. How do we deal with the trauma that our young men are dealing with? We have to address it. Bermuda, we have to address it. Because if we don't, it's on our doorstep. It's on our doorstep. We can't get away from it. We can't run from it. We need to tackle it head on. We talked about solutions the other day, and one solution that I'm trying to push forward is the trades. I shared with a group of young men, I think it was last week, at the that facility at the Earl Barkley. They're doing construction classes. And I said one way out of this gang activity is work. That is the way out. I've seen it with a lot of our men that used to be, young men that used to be on the streets, that used to be, they're working. They work, they go home. They work, they go home. Year in, year out. You've got about 3 years, and then those individuals that they used to run with, don't even see them no more because they've changed. They've simplified their life. That's the way out. A way out of this madness is to get work for our young black men. And trades is what we need. I don't know what else to say, but we can fix this. We can do it. We have to do it all together, dude. Yes. Not police, not government, not the churches. Everybody need to come together and let's save our young people, not just our men. Because we've got women, young girls that are caught up in the same bully, gang lifestyle. We can do it.
You said a whole lot, man. You said a whole lot. Our final presenter, Mr. Darren Burch, is an educator, a learning engineer, curriculum architect and educational strategist. Also deals with learning technologies, a learning technologies coach. Darren has taught computer science in the UK, in China, Brazil, Portugal, Thailand, Africa, and of course, here in Bermuda. He's also the CEO of Great for Learning. As I mentioned earlier, he's a sportscaster, former president of Boulevard Community Club. He currently serves president of the Southampton Rangers Sports Club. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, kindly welcome Darren Burch.
Assalamu alaikum. Right now, my brother, that list I want you to add, crybaby. My brother dear, sister dear, the brother here in the Yemen. They said all the things that needed to be said. But I'm hurting because all the people that needed to hear it are not here. Please, Allah, let the words of my mouth and the meditations of my soul be acceptable in your sight. For as I serve you, then I will be humble, and men will listen. Well, my brother Ishmael, I have to tell you this. I call him Chain. Fast talking, slow moving, unpredictable Chain. That's before Allah came into his life. And when Ishmael asked me in the marketplace or in the shopping center or the parking lot if I would take part in this, and I didn't think twice. Usually I called my wife, and I didn't. I said, yeah. And the minute I said yes, I made up my mind that I was not going to go to Webster's dictionary to find a meaning of hurt. And I also made up my mind that I wasn't going to go to a chat box or to some AI platform to find out what hurt was. Instead, I went to the street corners. I went to where our young brothers are, and I talked to them, and I asked them. And they had so much things to say. And right now, they have so much things to say. What is hurt? How and why do hurt people act on their pain to hurt others? How do we help these hurt people? Has anybody ever been awoken in the dews of the day or early nights with cramp? All the people with gray hairs laughing. Because about last week, I awoke somehow in the morning and my wife heard me reading. And she said, what's the matter? And I had this cramp in my calf and it wouldn't go. And immediately she started to massage it. And I was telling her to bend my toes back. And she said, it feels like a potato. And the cramp went on and on. And I prayed, please, Allah, remove this cramp out of me. And she got me some water and she got me a medication that I take. It's not really a medication, it's hydration salts, what I use when I pack roofs when it's hot. And she went and got salt and put it under my tongue. But still, that calf hurt. Has anybody ever cooked a meal for a loved one? Sure you have. I remember I cooked a Valentine meal for my ex-wife some years ago. And I was so proud of it. I went to the shop. I got the best piece of salmon I could get. I found fresh broccoli and carrots and potatoes. And I decided that I was going to make this special Valentine's meal. And she was tired and she was in the living room or in the bedroom, if I remember, watching TV. And I sang over this meal and I loved, and the love that I put in this meal, I even had candles and red napkins. And I went out in the garden and got some petals from the rose tree, because we lived on the road called Rose Golf. And when I called her to eat, she was like, just bring it here. I'll sit in the bedroom and eat. And I said, no, come and see what I did for you. Come and share this, with me. And she became enraged and angry. And she took her plate and threw it up in there and broke it and stuff and all over the place. And for half an hour, I sat on the floor and cried as I picked up the broccoli and the pieces of the plates. I was hurt. See, there are different types of hurt. There's physical hurt. There's spiritual hurt, psychological hurt, verbal hurt. There's all types of hurt, relational hurt. Why are our young black brothers hurting? And why they in turn hurt others? You know why? Because they never forgot, that their fathers are not present in their lives. They never forgot, that they're being raised in single families by mothers. And I'll never go on record and say that a woman cannot raise up a male child. But I will say that every male child needs a male in their life as an example, as someone to look up to, as someone to give them that male influence. And our young black men are missing those type of men. Brothers, we got to stand up. And I first say I apologize, because I'm going to tell you a story never told. Quite some time ago, I was selling heroin from my apartment on Horseshoe Road. And another guy from another part of the island was sitting on my wall selling heroin. And that brother right there in white, alhamdulillah, you stopped me from killing him that day, brother. And I thank you. You remember, don't you? And 6 months later, I left Bermuda. Retrained myself. Became an educator. Our young black brothers are hurting. Because no, they will never forget that their moms are working 3 jobs. And still they cannot afford the iPhone and the Jordans. So they get sucked up by leaders in the streets who gave them a sense of belonging, who gave them a sense of family. Trevor Sparks, I call Trevor Sparks. I sure you remember, brother, because I complained that some years ago, a group of young men after school were playing one bunch every day after school on top of St. Augustine Hill. It was a white wall that they set off and played with. And something happened there one time that was a traumatic occasion. And the other press, it wasn't us, labeled them the white wall game. And for that week, all of the other press, the written and the broadcast, started talking about the event and the white wall game. You see, what bothers me is that every year we see tourists lying South Shore watching whales pass by in ports. Every year, birds fly south in flocks. When there's a bitch on heat in the neighborhood and her blood scent, you always see a pack of males. You see, because in nature, animals run together. But when our young black men do it, we label them gangs. Our young men will never forget the inappropriate touching and sexual abuse that they experience from other family members. And they mask it and are afraid to reveal it. Our young men are hurting. Our young black men will never forget they've had to endure 12 years of schooling with subjects that is not relevant to them. They're set in rows and columns and educated like they did during the Industrial Revolution. Our young black men are not taught restorative practices so that they can heal their differences. When we were kids, we played marbles. If you got skunked, you had to walk home with your best mate who skunked you, your favorite marble, that jack spinner. Our young black men will never forget that they're not taught fiscal management. They're not taught to take out insurance policies, and instead of taking loans on their assets, they can take loans on their insurance policies. Our young black men are hurt because we took trades out of our schools. Now on a Friday, you see Portuguese, Brazilians, Jamaicans, and the Filipinos, and every other race and every other nationality succeed in our country. I know what it's like to be an expatriate. You see people, I lived and worked in most parts of the world. It's a beautiful life. They paid my rent, they paid my flights, they gave me a holiday. So what we need to do, folks, is use data, because for those 12 years that our young black men are in school, they start at 3, 4, and 5. We need to access that data early and identify skills and traits and get them going now. That little boy at work, I'm leaning over because I'm got cramp. That young black, I'm about to call my wife. That young 4-year-old boy at work preschool should be being trained in some type of engineering when we see his traits are good. Because that little young girl, the way she threw that ball in PE at 4 years old on PHC field with a P, should be being trained to be a top-notch cricket bowler. We wait too long, folks. Look how long we took to make Andrew Bascom the national squad coach. We need to start waiting for government. And this is not an attack on you, my brother, nor you, Honorable Minister. We need to redesign our working men's club. It's not really a working men's club because we're not working. We need to make them NGOs and community hubs to develop our young men and young ladies. We need to get to the root cause of all of this hurt. We need to find out why. We need to start the healing. You know what we really need to do? And I'm gonna be honest with you, I was a bit afraid. We need to go out there on the street corners and sit and talk to our young brothers, because they are so dying for someone to talk to. I'll leave you with something a good friend of mine who I was a coach and a mentor to, a brother called Quentin Shuller. He said to me one day, the village will perish when the neglected child returns to burn the village down. May Allah keep you peaceful, healthy, and happy. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Brother Darren. Words of wisdom. A whole lot's been said. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your turn. You've heard the panelists. And let's give them a round of applause. Exceptional. Exceptional. We have a few moments. I'd like to turn it over to you. You may have a question, quick comment, And I'll carry the mic, so I'll come to you. And the panelists are here. We would like to stretch their minds a bit more. Notes are being taken. And so we hope to continue to feed your appetite. Thank you. You have a question, brother? I know you had something earlier.
Well, I do have a lot to say.
But you're going to narrow it.
Yeah, I'm going to get as much as I can with the time that I have.
Okay, you're wasting time.
So, realistically, hurt people, right? So what causes the hurt? How do we identify the hurt, like you said? So what are the things that are in place to be able to identify different types of hurt, just like different types of abuse? Because in all the types of abuse you've mentioned, I never heard reactive abuse, which is when somebody's pushed into a corner and they have to fight their way out, which is what black men need to do, because we have been pushed in a corner for a couple hundred years under the influence of documents like Willie Lynch, things that can be reversed, implemented measures before the court that assist. And I'm sorry to the members of the government that if I do seem like I'm throwing shade or criticism, it might be because you're the enemy of me. Because I believe that before the court will entertain things to separate a father, which we have all addressed is a very important thing, then when we go to the courts, why is the court's first step of action to eliminate the father? What programs are we doing to stop the courts from destroying the families that we're trying so hard to reestablish and build on, so that we don't have to turn to other people that are not aware of our issues? How do we reach the media that says that they have no idea problems what to do? How can we fix this? You said you have no idea. But yet when I approached you and I gave you propositions to introduce, because you have a platform, you have connections, you have networks, you ignored me, Mr. Lindsay. And you blocked me, Mr.
What is your question?
Brother. Look, brother, it's too much better. Look, brother, it's too much better.
This is the thing, because like I said earlier, when people are dealing with things as men, we are then labeled as angry and forced to be quiet. Now, until we can realize that that is the root of the problem, we guys will always be in trouble.
So allow him to respond to the concern that you have.
I just wanted to know what was the question?
Can I just say this? The email said earlier, right? This thing, look, I know you, right? And this is for everybody.
I would like to hear you.
Hang on, we let you speak, let me speak.
I can't hear you well, so I want to hear what you have to say.
Because I want everybody to hear this, right?
Can you have the microphone?
Sure.
Good evening, everybody. Yeah. Okay. Sheikh Shadeed Muhammad, he said earlier, if you are listening, right, and I've learned a lot from this guy, the Honorable Wolf. He done meetings here and there that he done travel. He looked at me one day, I came in court, and he said to me, Pickles, and everybody laughed. So I'll come back here. Here I am now, trying to help, trying to give back to the people. He gave me a chance to give back to society. We, as a community, we earn to these young guys, right? I get what you're saying, brother. I get what you're saying. But what I've learned over the years, right, is that we have to look at the situation, dress back from it, right, ponder on it, and don't attack fast. We have to look at it, reflect on it, and see how we can approach it without any venom in it, so you can get a good result out of it. Because sometimes I realize when we attack stuff, we're not going to get a good result, right? In cases like this evening, right? I done something, and then after it was done, I had to go back in my little corner and reflect. I learned that from that brother right there, right? We have to, men in Bermuda, we take a long time to mature. Somehow we take a little longer than women to mature, right? But we have to start looking at the situation. The situation is that we need to stand up now. Right? These people are going to our little brothers and sisters are going to overrun us, and then we're not going to have nothing to give to the other generation behind us, behind them. So we have to stand up, be men. What we want to do is start putting workshops in place, right? So don't take none of this out of context. This is just the beginning of many things to come. So let's try to keep it in context, okay?
Trevor, did you want to respond? No. But one of the questions on the table is, and I heard this brother say, are there any policies or workshops that would be designed for males, per se, for families that can begin to help them to rehabilitate
Before the court.
prior to court?
See, because with institutions like this that take place prior to the court, it also gives the court time to filter through petty issues and allow the real resources to go to the real problem. If we can eliminate false claims from even entering the court, we can save resources that are already precious in dealing with real pressing issues.
Okay, I think Ms. Shield wants to say something. Respond.
Sure. So let's be realistic. When it comes to wanting a family to be together, it has to take the part of both individuals want that. If one of the individuals don't want it, it will not work, right?
I agree with
Now,
you 100%.
there's also plenty of resources which can take the form of, you might want to go to the Department of Child and Family Services. You may want to go to your own counselor or therapist. Now, what I can say from the seat that I sit in, when it comes to domestic abuse, if there is domestic abuse, you cannot have any type of family mediation because there is an imbalance of power where one party is fearful of the other party. So you can't come together and do any type of mediation and or couples counseling because it's not best practice, because it puts the person with the lesser power in greater danger. And so that person, what we recommend is that both parties go for their own counseling, right? You get counseling on what your hurt is. The other person gets counseling on what their hurt is. Because the person that's doing the abuse, their hurt's going to be different from the person that's receiving the abuse. You get your own counseling to deal with your own issues. And after that, a decision can be made.
Thank you, Dorothy.
But it has to be made by both parties. It can't be dictated by one party.
Thank you. I have two more questions back here.
If you guys would like to talk to me, I'm more than willing to share my opinions without inconveniencing everybody's time. But I'm going to let you know I am against the demographic of a lazy black Bermudian man. I'm going to take action. I'm going to bust my ass every day to resolve these issues. That's why I'm here today. That's why I can't be quiet. This is why I won't be quiet in the court, because the court is aiding to this. I have everything that these gentlemen on this panel have been saying. I have solutions.
My brother, we get you. We understand your pain, your hurt, and we understand what you're going through.
This isn't pain, sir.
Can we please allow the other members of the forum to take part?
Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having us this weekend. I really appreciated the different perspectives that you all brought. I want to start by saying that, so I grew up in foster care. I was in Birmingham. I graduated from Baki in 2019, so I'm fairly young, fairly new coming out of this system. And I know one of the questions was, what can we do as a community to help young people, to help me, to help girls and boys like me? Most of the boys and girls that I grew up with in the group home are either dead or they're in jail right now. Alhamdulillah, when it comes to my family specifically, something that played an extreme role in our growth and our development. A little bit more background, if you go to Department of Child and Family Services and you ask about the DeSilva children, at one point nobody wanted to foster us because of our background. At one point, Department of Child and Family Services looked at us like miracles because of who we are today. And I say all that to say that as a community, what helped us most was having mentors, having people there from the community to look at us and say, hey, you guys are worth it. Hey, talk to me about this. Hey, let's join this program. So one of the things that I would say as a community that would be extremely beneficial is joining the Mirrors program, joining programs that are already available, that are struggling in Bermuda to find people to volunteer and to give children voices. Big brothers and big sisters, we need people to volunteer with them.
That's right.
Go to Berkeley, talk to the students, like a gentleman said, go to the streets, talk to people. A lot of the issues that I hear from young people, I was the head girl of my school at Berkeley in 2019, and I was the type of student that was connected with everyone. I knew the gang affiliates. I used to be a professional singer, so I knew the boys in the studio who wanted to rap. Like, I knew these people, and they just want someone to be there for them. I had one young gentleman, I was in S4, he was in S1, he was gang affiliated, tough little boy, but one day his father had cut his hair off because he was acting up at school. He came to school in tears. He didn't want to speak to any of the teachers, but he ran to me because I was there to listen to him. We just need people to listen to us, to be there, and to make us feel like we matter. That's what our young people want. That's what our black males want, for someone to be there. And the community we have today is not like the one that our parents used to have. We don't have that community feeling. I'm telling you that as a young person. I can't go to my neighbor. I don't know who my neighbor is. I wasn't taught to do that. Alhamdulillah for Islam, I know that now, but as a regular young person, we don't have what you guys used to have, so we're calling to the community to be there for us.
No, you do need the mic because we're live streaming, so we want everyone to hear what's coming over the microphone.
One CNN.
One CNN.
So I actually come to these symposiums because I'm always seeking to understand my young people more. So I currently and have been working at a school for an alternative school for boys, which now includes girls, because the community has shifted. And what you have spoken about tonight is my every single day. I work with the toughest to get to, but I want to give you one, probably maybe undocumented statistic that I realized my third year in. Every single boy that was at that school had an absent father. Every single one of them, either dead or just absent. And the girls had an absent mother. So a lack of the parent makes a huge difference. My children are angry every day. I want solutions. There are things in place. I want to make this point too about men. They definitely need to step up. So I heard it 3 or 4 times. But they really do. They really have to be in place. Even if they have both parents, the men in this community have to step up. There was a event up at Northfield maybe 2 years ago now where they were calling for old men to come. And I sent my significant other, and I said, take your son, because it's not my son, I don't have any children. But I said, take your son and go. They need men to come out. When he came home and said it was only like less than 100 men there, I was disappointed, well disappointed, that something that was going on for just men to show up. And they had cheers out for at least 500 to 800 men, but probably 100 men showed up. That's extremely disappointing. So after that happened, I'm not sure what the solution is. Because in my mind, men showing up for young boys is the biggest solution. I can step up for a young girl who doesn't have a mother because I'm a female. I'm there every day. We're there for the boys and the girls. But the lack of males present in our young men's lives, they are in pain. And if you talk to them about the pain, I'm not even waiting. My littlest one right now is 11. So I see them at 11, 12, 13 with no daddy, with all the antisocial behavior. And the biggest problem is I haven't seen my daddy.
We appreciate that.
If I could just add on to what the young lady said, that lack of males or fathers plays out in the courtroom. So in the courtroom, as you can appreciate, a lot of young males do appear. It's a most disturbing situation for me every day to see young black males either in the dock or about to go into the dock. And many of them being charged with rather serious and heinous crimes. And invariably, whether it be the first appearance, third appearance, sentencing, a trial, invariably, the only persons you see supporting or providing any support would be a female who would be mom, grandmama, auntie. Rarely do we get to see a father or uncle or a male cousin in the courtroom. So yes, we have failed in that respect. And you can see the look of sadness mixed in with anger of the young men as they are being escorted to escape. And if only we can have more males, I think we all can agree, we would shift the dynamics of our society. One of the most, I got a lot of value out of my job, but there's one part of my job which I absolutely hate, and that is locking up young black males. Now, the law tells me that I should incarcerate certain individuals, and I only hope that once they've done their time, that they will be rehabilitated and they come out and they have been deterred from committing crimes. Unfortunately, in many situations, that does not happen because they get let out of prison and they go back into the dysfunctional environment which created the problem in the first place. And again, in those situations, the male is not in. And I think we need to grapple with that. I think we as a society, we as men in this community need to take it, the bull by the horns and say we need to change the trajectory of our young men. They are a reflection of us. They are a reflection of what we have not been doing for them over the years. And now it's generational. The one of the saddest stories I have, and unfortunately plays out quite often, is when you see in the courtroom, all dressed in orange, grandpa, daddy, and son, 3 generations of criminal behavior. And it just doesn't happen once. At Westgate, right now, you have dad and son locked up. We don't have to be sociologists to know that there's a very clear nexus between lack of fathers in the house and criminal behavior. And that's where we have to have that conversation.
And let me piggyback on what Justice Wolf just said, because the number of men that are dying, young black men, and it's not gun violence, it's night violence, it's road traffic fatalities. So we're losing man on a serious rate, and it's leaving, and I should know of all people, it's about 15 to 1. 15 women to 1 man. Right here in this little island. And the greater the population, the bigger the number. So that just exacerbates the issue even more. There are 15 women to 1 man. I used to use that for a different, and we're not going to go into that, but I used to use that for a different reason.
I'm not even going to imagine.
I had an issue with a woman, calculator, I got $14 I can go from. But I'm being honest. That's the issue that we're having. So we, as men, now, we heard it. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 men sitting in 5. And that's the cry. We've dropped the ball. We've dropped the ball.
I see hands up. It's getting late. We have to narrow it. I'll give you the privilege. I'll run up there because I know Imam Shadeed is making time for the studio, and so we'll make this very quickly. I can't run like I used to.
Good evening, thank you very much. I just have a question for Justice Wu. I heard you say about there being grandfathers and fathers and sons that are in the docket and then end up, say, at Westgate. So what is in place up at Westgate for these persons that have these trauma histories? Because as someone that works in a school, I'm looking at the little people that come through and the little boys that come through, and trauma is there. So always trying to think in my mind what we can do as a school to help to prevent, and so we try to build that whole family community at the school. But what happens up at Westgate when you have a situation where you have that generational situation? What kind of trauma, help is there for those persons that have these trauma histories?
As far as I know, not a whole lot. I think we only have one, maybe two clinical psychiatrists. One clinical who can actually, and he's dividing his time between Westgate and his other responsibilities at MWI, and so that is woefully short of what we should have. I do know that the powers that be at Westgate would like to have programs, life skill programs, GED programs there. Resources are really tight, and so that's not taking place as much as it should do. But also, the biggest problem, for I understand, is that a lot of young men up there, they just want to do their time. So they don't want to engage in programs which are actually going to assist them. Give him like 3 years, and I'm out. And so it's that mindset that going in, it's like, I don't need to grow at all. I know I'm going to be out. If I got a 3-year sentence, I know I'm going to be out in a year and a half anyway. I'm going to go up there with my boys, sit off for a little while, and I'm going to leave. And so that's a large part of the problem, the lack of enthusiasm of the young men. And so you can't really blame the prisons. It is a very deeply embedded mindset that I don't want to improve myself. The other problem that we do have, though, which I think we need to address, is that we don't have a transitional housing for young men who leave from Westgate and go back into the community. They do go back to the same dysfunction that created the problem in the first place. And so many of them, believe it or not, do not want to go back to their neighborhood. But we don't provide them with anything with a soft landing back into the community. So we should have, I think, a transitional housing that will allow them to go back into the community, learn life skills, learn the financial maturity that you spoke about, Mr. Burchell. All those things. Also learn simple things like how to wash your clothes, how to make up your bed. A lot of those guys are bereft of any of those sort of skills. And so when they come out and they're not really taught that, it's going to be a revolving door. And that's why at one point in time, our recidivism rate was 80%, which basically means that 80% of guys who commit a crime will come out of prison and go back in prison. And so we are definitely doing something wrong there. I would love to see, if I was minister for the day, and I know that it's so easy to blame the government. They are unfortunately a scapegoat, but it's not their. The government can't tell us how to raise our children. I'm sorry.
Preach.
They can't. That's on us. That's totally on us. And so when we're talking about providing resources, yes, the government can do its part, but there's something deeper than that, I think, that we need to resolve, and government can help us with that.
Okay, thank you. Just we have 2 quick questions. We have to be out of here in a few moments.
I just want to add real quick to that one of the things that I think that we need to do as a government is to look at our laws, and rather than make them strictly punitive, is to embed in the law some form of rehabilitation, wherein you don't end your sentence until you finish some form of rehabilitation treatment.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, first I want to congratulate the organizers who put together this forum. and I want to thank the panelists for the very strong messages that they brought into the room. I just wanted to say that I believe that there are some real genuine efforts afoot in the island right now. And frankly, not to be biased, but there are some people and organizations that are doing real meaningful work in this community. However, I also want to say that in some cases, I guess some people don't know about these programs or these people's work. But in some cases, they're being marginalized because of bias, you know. We know about racism in the world. And we know about slavery, we know about colonization. But we do reflect on bigotry. I'm talking about religious bigotry. I'm just talking about things that individuals, you know, they block each other from getting to the finish line. So I'm saying, for example, in Bermuda, in the last couple of years, a number of young black males have come to Islam, alhamdulillah. I mean a number, like maybe 20, 30 at least, maybe more. But the organizations that are trying to do this work and reform, how to bring the young men to the realization that they can become strong men, sometimes there's a block to the access to whether it be money or just support or access, even within the prisons, because people have been colonized. So they block each other sometimes. Some of black people, you know what I'm talking about. We need to work hard to bring down these barriers. Just like the way we brought down the racial barriers, we need to bring down the other barriers, because we're all human beings. We're all, and just look in this room. How many white people in this room? I'm saying pay attention, you know. We've got to get rid of the prejudice amongst each other so we can really tackle these problems that you're talking about, because they are real. That's all I want to say for now. But really, I challenge everyone, whether it be political people, whether it be social people or religious people, get rid of the prejudice, get rid of it. You know, whether it be racial prejudice, whether it be religious bigotry, get rid of it, because young people don't want anything to do with it, you know. That's what I want to say. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. I'll give you 15 seconds.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that presentation. It was very moving. And I think I just want to touch on one or two things and relate to the justice's point, and also Ms. Shields' point, that we have to look at it's two levels. One, the level of systemic problems that are here. That's where we have to do a reflection on laws, etc. Because we know that in a colonized system was about division. And we act out that division, and that's what Salim was just talking about. In other words, the young people talk about that we have our own gangs. You're not in this gang, you're not in, but a clue to getting past that is to ensure that we collaborate much more. In other words, we as a community have to act out what we're looking for. And when we have our organizations, and Brother Butch brought up the thing about hubs, that clubs can be hubs, but that means to work with the other community. Get away from the competition, let's move towards collaboration. But at the same time, let's look at those systems that are in place that are causing this, and around the world they're addressing this, so that we have some models in other places to build on.
Thank you. The final question for the night.
Yeah, I'm going to give a bit of a good evening. There's three things that I want to throw out. So, yeah, that is narrow. It's trades. So our schools, our middle schools offer trades that is grossly underfunded and unattended. And so I throw out the challenge to look at the current transformation, because education is going through change and the parish schools do not offer trades, as to see how that can be addressed. And when I say trace, that includes family studies, so talking about how you can cook for yourself, how you can maintain your family, that financial literacy piece. So I find that one of the things is we have things done to us, but we talk about research that says there's things that should be done, and we don't lobby for that. Bermuda is a very, very quiet nation in that respect. So I just want to throw that out. That was my 3 things, actually.
Appreciate that, ladies and gentlemen. Not to rush you, but we do have, we have to wrap this up. We know that the college is about to close. We have until 9 p.m. We want to give another round of applause for our presenters.